Since the launch of Clash of Clans, players have discovered some truly bizarre accounts. Villages with impossible buildings, glitched bases, hacked profiles, insane achievements, and even mysteries that are still unsolved today. I've covered some of these in this channel before, but today I aim to explain every weird account that players have found through the years. Angarkey Rikhi. No idea if I said that correctly, but this player was discovered in September 2015. What was strange about this one was that you couldn't visit him. Every time you tried, the game would crash for unknown reasons. This sort of became a viral mystery at the time. It even had its own creepypasta / horror story that explained the reason why you couldn't visit him was because the guy behind the account had died. That's why the account was known as the Ghost Village. There was nothing creepy about it though. What had actually happened was during a maintenance, something caused his base to be unsymmetrical. At least that's what Supercell said, unsymmetrical. So all of his buildings shifted one way because one side of the base was shorter, so everything started overlapping. And if you're wondering, how does this footage exist if you couldn't visit the Ghost Village? Well, it turns out this only made some phones crash, not all. So if you got lucky, you could look at what was going on inside the village and live to tell the tale. A little less exciting than all the rumors, but still crazy how something like this happened. Anyway, shortly after, the base went back to normal, but for a couple more years, people still visited to see the infamous Ghost Village. Then there is this player. Yeah, I'm not even gonna try. This was a TownHall 2 with what appeared to be a bunch of stuff he wasn't supposed to have. His barracks was maxed for the time, he had dark elixir troops, spells, heroes, and when you tried to visit him to see what on earth was going on, you couldn't. The game would crash. It was so anticlimactic. You see this crazy profile and you want to check it out, and you couldn't. However, it wasn't all too crazy, and his achievements did hint at what was going on. It said he had achieved TownHall 9 with level 11 gold storages, so this was just a bug with the TownHall image and the base preview. The profile was bugged, but the player wasn't. It's still pretty strange though, especially when you consider that the player is gone. The account doesn't exist. Was he banned? Did he delete his account? Like, what happened? I guess we'll never know. Rictus. This is a TownHall 8 account that was found in mid-2023 that looks pretty normal at first until you look at some of the levels. Yes, those are level 9 walls, which are not unlocked until TownHall 9. But that's not all. Among other buildings that are over leveled is the Dark Elixir Storage, Drill, Dark Barracks, Bomb Tower, Lab, and more. And that also means that he has access to some spells and troops that you can't get at TownHall 9. It's as if he downgraded TownHalls or somehow made the game think he was a TownHall 9. Definitely a strange one, but it looks like this is caused by the auto upgrade. When you're offline for a while, your base starts to upgrade things by itself, and it looks like in this rare instance, it over upgraded. However, I'm not 100% sure on that, as this explanation comes from a Reddit comment, so it's just one of those trust me bro situations. But it does make the most sense. Sakura. Now, while the last account Rictus may have been caused by a glitch, this one looks like there may have been some game file or exploit shenanigans. Sakura was like the last one, a TownHall with upgrades of the next TownHall. Normally impossible, right? He even had scatter shots, so right off the bat, this couldn't have been caused by the auto upgrade feature because it doesn't build structures for you, it only upgrades them. In fact, that theory is impossible anyway because the auto upgrade feature hadn't been added until months after this account was discovered in early 2020. But that was far from the weirdest thing about this account. In his builder base, he had duplicates of a lot of buildings, including 2 builder halls, 2 labs, 2 clock towers, and he even had an extra barbarian statue. Unfortunately for us, looking for an explanation, we never got one because he was banned sometime between 2020 and 2021. 2016 bug / glitch. You could probably already tell by the name, but this was an account dedicated to showcasing a glitch from 2016 where you could stack buildings and actually save them like that. A lot of the time, these stacking bugs are just party tricks, you know, they don't actually save like that, and when you visit them, there's nothing going on. However, this time, that was not the case. You could visit him and interact with these stacked buildings. This was fixed in early 2016, and most player bases were reverted back to normal. Even the ones uncovered months later would eventually be updated. However, this account was basically frozen in time, and for years, you could see this for yourself. It was like going out to view an extinct species at a museum. They would eventually change their village name, but sometime in 2021, the base went back to normal, which is how it sits today. 3DSK and Oro. So first, this account was discovered in January 2013, the oldest in this video. It's so old that player tags and profiles weren't even a thing yet. So this guy was found with a very strange building, TID Goblin Hut. And by the looks of it, it seemed like it was being used as a camp because there were a ton of giants surrounding it. And yes, it was. This is what it looked like when you tapped on it. It's hard to tell from this picture, but he had 3 of these. There's one visible at the top, and I guess at some point he had filled them up with over 800 archers, and apparently attacking people with them. There was another well-known player named Oro who had similar features. He had some odd stones that don't spawn in the home village, a goblin pole, and there were a bunch of other things wrong about the base. Like, he was a leader of a clan without a clan castle, he had no builders, an incorrect amount of certain buildings for his town hall level. It was all over the place. Now, there is a ton of misinformation about the goblin pole and the rock, that back in the beta days, they spawned in your village and only beta players have this or something. That's completely false. I'm not really sure where they heard that. They probably asked ChatGPT. At the time, developers explained that there was a bug with an early version of the game that essentially caused some villages to be replaced by goblin maps. Those who reported the issue did get their villages fixed. However, some did slip through the cracks, like they never logged on and so they never noticed. Like 3DSK found months later, and Oro who wasn't discovered until 2015. There were some speculations that Supercell was trying to cover up some hack, and even to this day, it's still a popular theory, but yeah, none of these accounts exist today. Oro is nowhere to be seen. I'm not really sure where he went. TownHall War. Taking a break from weird bases, this one is just a strange yet awesome achievement. It is a player who still exists, by the way, that is a TownHall 3 with almost 150 war stars. How exactly did a TownHall 3 manage to get so many war stars? Well, that's easy. Attacking other TownHall 3 players in wars. Except TownHall 3 War doesn't have any troops unlocked. He doesn't even have a barracks. Well, let me stop beating around the bush. The method they used was using their clan castle. They'd fill it up with something that was strong enough to at least get a 1-star on a base. This probably took years to achieve, but sadly they did retire before completing the first tier of that achievement. Agukpo99. This account may seem pretty normal, just a TownHall 10 that may or may not have been abandoned, nothing crazy, until you look at the right corner. Yes, that is a Grand Warden at TownHall 10. Impossible! This is believed to be one of the last remaining bases from a 2024 bug that caused players to get heroes at the wrong TownHall level when they added the hero hall. There's actually been many cases like this, a queen at TownHall 7, a prince at TownHall 8, the world champion at TownHall 12, as well as players being able to upgrade heroes past their max. Sadly, we don't know how many of these still exist. A lot of players will eventually upgrade their town halls once the novelty wore off, I guess. But we know one of them for sure who you can still visit and see for yourself. It looks like he stopped playing long ago just to keep this oddity preserved. TownHall 12. As you can guess by his name, this was another strange TownHall 12. He was missing most buildings, so he had no troops unlocked, heroes, spells, nothing. Now, the automatic answer here is that once upon a time, you could sell buildings and, you know, that's what he did. However, that was not possible for TownHall 12 and above, because the TownHall 12 update was the one to require you to build all buildings to get there. So even if he had sold everything before TownHall 12, he couldn't have got there. Definitely a very strange one. There are several theories on how he may have achieved this, but I personally could not find one that did not have some flaw in the explanation. There are tons of these under TownHall 12 that are totally explainable, but this one shouldn't exist. Vikalp. This player does still exist, however, what we're about to look at is archived footage from long ago, so there's nothing going on in his base today. So back in 2018, this was his base, and if you were looking at a screenshot of it, there wouldn't be anything odd about it, but if you were visiting him, you'd notice something moving. Not the troops, but the king altar. It was spazzing out, like spinning like crazy, for no apparent reason. Literally, no one has ever had any explanation to this. But probably the weirdest part is that, as far as I'm aware, this was the only base that had such a rare oddity like this. There is no other footage or even a post talking about spinning altars. This only happens when the altar was destroyed, so you had to look at him at the right time, but it was short-lived, and it eventually stopped spinning, and the player did move on with his life. gkgk. This account was discovered in late 2024, around the time Supercell was teasing TownHall 17. And the reason I mention that is because this account was believed to be the account mentioned in a clue during an update video. There was like a village number and something about version, rank, and server, and a couple other things. And so gkgk was assumed to be the mysterious base everyone was looking for. As a TownHall 4, he somehow had 5,000 trophies. He had some achievements that seemed impossible, a Clan War League decoration without ever rebuilding the clan castle, and a bunch of unreleased decorations. However, nothing ever came out of this. People thought gkgk was referring to a new Goblin King hero we were getting, but obviously we never got that. All the theories were wrong. Maybe this wasn't the base people were looking for, but it was a strange account nonetheless. It is still active today, and we still don't know who this is. A hacker? A developer account? We may never know. Next we have this player that I won't try to mention. This was a TownHall 10 with no TownHall. I mean, this is the first thing that stood out when visiting this guy. A large hole in the middle of the base. And then you start to look around the base, you know, the trees, the water, it's gotta be here somewhere. But it's not. He has no TownHall. Now, the first thing that probably comes to mind is he sold the TownHall, like many craziest bases videos will tell you. But this is completely incorrect. They don't even know what they're talking about. Not only could you not sell a TownHall, it was only a visual party trick, but selling buildings wasn't even a thing when TownHall 10 came out. This is a modern account that somehow managed to get rid of the TownHall. But it doesn't stop there. Clicking the builder base boat didn't do anything, and he didn't have a profile. The only way you could see his builder base was to go to yours, then visit him, and what do you know? The builder hall is also missing. There was sort of a backstory floating around about this guy that he was using a farming bot, so Supercell removed his TownHall so he couldn't progress, and I'm not sure if I believe it, but what else is there to believe, you know? The guy was yeeted out of existence, and we never got an answer, so I'm gonna go with that story. Tomy Rampage. This player, who no longer exists by the way, was discovered in September 2017, and basically the strangest thing about this account was that somehow he had moved his ancient barbarian statue. Now, like the comment section from this footage, duh, he just used a shovel. What's so strange about it? But remember, this was 2017 and shovels weren't added for another year and a half. It was believed that somehow the statue had respawned because how was it on the village border? Let's say you were somehow able to move it. Well, you couldn't place it there. You couldn't place things at the border of villages. That wasn't a thing until 2020. So it's believed that this was some sort of respawn bug. Tomy Rampage wasn't the only player found with this oddity. There was another, but shortly after this footage was recorded, this guy left the clan and no one ever saved his player tag, I guess. Definitely strange that there were only a couple of cases of this. ClanCastleChris. Speaking of things mysteriously moving, this account had a clan castle that kept moving. And yes, there was a shovel glitch way back then where you could do that, but as you probably guessed, this was before shovels existed. He wasn't the only one to be moving his clan castle somehow, but he sure was the most dedicated with a name like that. To my knowledge, no one ever cracked the code and how they were moving the clan castles, at least no one ever discussed it publicly. Abdullah. This one isn't just about this player, but I wanted to compile all of the accounts that have been found with negative trophies through the years. Abdullah probably had the craziest number at negative 3,475 at its highest. Or do we call it lowest in this case? Someone really asked him how's the matchups down there. Then there was One Shot, negative 336, and even players in the home village like Ghost, negative 1, and Cha-Cha 2K4, also negative 1. Now, it is important to know that in 2023, there was a builder-based glitch where several players had negative trophies for a brief moment, but none of the ones I mentioned were part of this glitch. These were before, ranging from 2014 to 2022. The home village one was a glitch, and it happens when you were dropping trophies. There was a method where you drop a troop and hit next at the same time, and it let you drop trophies that way really fast, to the point where it would very rarely deduct trophies when you were already at 0. But unfortunately for the builder-based one, I couldn't find any explanation to those. A couple of these accounts are still active today, but obviously no negative trophies. It's not even possible in the home village anymore. Falcon. This was a TownHall 2 account discovered in 2018 that no longer exists, that for months was consistently finding ways to train troops he didn't even have unlocked. Well, it wasn't months, it was like a couple months. Baby dragons, regular dragons, electro dragons, miners, and even a P.E.K.K.A. He could probably have trained many others if it wasn't for the camp's housing space capacity. Here is some gameplay of him using some of those troops to wreck another helpless TownHall 3. Now, apparently this was a common exploit that was going around between June and July 2018, and a bunch of low-level players were using it to beat others in war or just to have some fun. Here is another player called Lime that had done the same exploit. He was a TownHall 9 with bowlers, and here he is using them in war. He also used electro dragons. Now, I know this is probably better suited in an exploit video because it seems that a lot of people were doing it, but Falcon was probably what I call the celebrity of this exploit. His player tag was being passed around and everyone wanted to see this odd TownHall 3 with impossible troops. So at the time, it was definitely a strange account. All of these accounts were, of course, banned. Jason, Bourne, and Matza. I can't really show you their profiles because that's the thing, they didn't have one. They were players with no player tags, so you couldn't visit them or view their profiles. It's as if they didn't exist. It would just tell you you can't visit them, and that was it. It was very strange. Now, apparently at some point you could visit their bases and there was nothing odd about them, but for some reason, whatever was affecting their accounts seemed to get worse over time. There was another player like this and you could visit him normally, but the profile was unavailable. One possible explanation was that these accounts were flagged to be deleted. It reminds me of that one de-identified bug that I talked about in my Clash of Clans Iceberg video of players who are supposed to be deleted or they were banned, so their names are changed to de-identified, but for some reason still remain in their clans and viewable. So maybe this was that, but from long ago, you know, before they started renaming the accounts. Because if you look for these villages today, they are nowhere to be found. Now, this clan still exists and Matza is in there, but he is a lower TownHall, so it doesn't look like this is the original Matza. Or is it? The thick plottins. Alright, I'm done with this. Let's move on. Mustafa Alabadi. This was a player found in a clan called Mustafa Hack that had a strange clan castle. Well, it wasn't really the clan castle, but he had somehow managed to fit way too many troops in there, like double the capacity. But that was far from the strangest part. In a defense replay, what comes out of the clan castle are golemites, lava pups, and skeletons. Yes, the clan castle was full of sub-troops. Somehow, someone had donated him these impossible troops. Now, remember what was in the clan castle earlier? Well, this gives us a hint on what might be going on here. He had tricked the game into thinking golemites were golems, barbarians as skeletons, and minions as lava pups. So clearly someone was messing with the game files and the server didn't think anything of it apparently. Next is this guy who no longer exists, but thanks to archive footage, we can see what was so strange about his base. I'm gonna cut to the chase. He had a gold mine in the trees. Now, while moving buildings out of bounds is a neat little party trick that you've likely seen before, those never actually save. It's just a visual trick that only the player who did the glitch can see. And when you reload the game, it goes back to normal. However, as you've probably noticed, this guy is being visited. So this was not a party trick. His gold mine was actually in the trees and you can interact with it and everything. It was so bizarre. And even more bizarre when you tried to go back home or clicked on the boat, the game would crash. No one ever found out what this guy did, as he was banned shortly after, which makes it even cooler and stranger, I guess. To my knowledge, this was the only time in Clash history where someone was able to pull this off. Saucy Goblins. This player is still active today, and when you look at their base, there isn't anything odd, judging by the name, hero skins, the scenery, and what used to be in their camps. They're probably just a Goblin fan, right? But if you look at their profile, they have managed to progress this much by only using goblins. As soon as he unlocked the goblins, he stopped upgrading the barracks, and this is what he's been using ever since for farming, clan games, and even trophy pushing. He has managed to reach over 5,000 trophies. Now, he does have heroes, and maybe he uses spells, I'm not so sure, but still very impressive and unique. I've never seen such an extraordinary achievement. NoAttack. Another impressive one, as you can tell by her name, she has never attacked. Stolen not a single elixir, gold, dark elixir, no multiplayer stars, no clan wars, absolutely nothing. Back in 2020, she said that the only thing she ever buys is the gold pass. All of the other progress comes from other means, such as collectors, events, clan games, and the trader. Pretty awesome. Morfeo46 and Pinti. There is nothing strange about their bases or necessarily about their accounts. However, I wanted to include these two players because they are the only two in the world to be the leader of the same clan. I mean, just putting their profiles side by side is such an odd sight. Now, I applaud these guys because many years ago, there were several clans with more than one leader. Even the one we're looking at right now had 3 at some point. This was caused by a bug in 2012 that allowed this to happen. And ever since, these two players have sat in the same clan. They are the last ones left to be leaders of one clan. So yeah, that is my list of the strangest accounts in Clash of Clans history. There are some that I skipped, like TownHall 1 accounts and villages missing a ton of buildings, among others, but these have become very common these days, so that's why I didn't include them. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, but hey, before you go, YouTube thinks you'll like this next video, and I think they know better than I do, so maybe you'll actually like it instead of me recommending something. As always, thanks for watching. Peace!